Be holy because I'm holy. That's what God says in the second portion we read this week. But what does it mean being holy? The God doesn't say, be a creator because I'm a creator. I mean, what's he mean by being holy? So the Meshech Chochmah says that it means God is saying there's only one little place in the entire universe that I created, both spiritual and physical, that doesn't express me, that doesn't reveal me. And I've placed you there, and your job is to make that place, in other words, your life and everything associated with your life, holy. That's a beautiful explanation. You know, there's a story of the Kalever Rebbe. Kalever Rebbe was a Hasidic master that lived through the Holocaust. And he actually didn't have a beard. He wasn't able to grow a beard because of what the Nazis did to him. He would, whenever there was a group of people, Jews, he would always scream with them, Shema Yisrael. That was his thing. He'd scream with everyone, Shema Yisrael. And he once related that the reason for this was that the Nazis were throwing Jews into the fire. There was a child that he saw, that they threw him into a fire, and this youngster screamed out Shema Yisrael just before they threw him in. So the Kalever Rebbe, who's loud, like kind of in line to be thrown in himself, calls out to God and says, look, God, if I'm going to scream out Shema Yisrael, what are you going to get out of it? If I remain alive, I will make sure that thousands of Jews are going to be screaming Shema Yisrael. Somehow an SS officer came by and said, okay, stop this line, and that was it. He was saved. And then he survived, and indeed, wherever he went, he got people to scream Shema Yisrael. That is sanctifying Hashem's name in this world. But our history is filled with stories of people literally giving their life for Judaism and for other Jews. And that they're seen at the highest level that one could ever reach. The highest. The Talmud tells us a story of Yosef, the son of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And he got very sick. And he was so sick, he was delirious, and everyone thought he was going to die, but he came back. And his father asked him when he came back, what did you see on the other side? And he told him a number of things he saw. But one of the things he says is, Haruge Lud ein ber yechayla lamed b'mchitzasa. That those who were killed in Lud, there's no creature that could be next to them. What was the story in Lud? There were two brothers, Papos and Lulinkus. And these two brothers, or Lulinus, and these two brothers did an incredible heroic act. There was a princess that was found dead, and they blamed the entire Jewish community there. And they were going to have a pogrom against the community. They were going to punish the entire community. These two brothers came along and says, what do you want with the whole community? We're the ones who did it. And they were put to death and saved the rest of the community. And they, he's saying, are the highest and the greatest, the most special there is. And it's remarkable. These two brothers gave their life not for their Judaism, they gave their life for their fellow Jews. Throughout our history, we have many, many stories where Jews were put to the test. Are you going to convert, or you're going to be killed by the sword? Whether it be Hananiah, Mishael, Bazai, by Nebuchadnezzar, are you going to worship the idol, or are you going to be thrown in the fiery furnace, in which they said, we're not going to worship the idol. They were thrown in the furnace, and they actually were saved. Miraculously saved. And throughout our history, in Auto the Fays, in Spanish Inquisition, I mean, during the Crusades, it's unfortunate we don't know enough of these stories. The community doesn't know enough of these stories. But throughout our history, constantly, Jews were always put to the test of keeping their faith versus death. But in this case, this story, and as is the story of the soldiers in the army today, they give their life to safeguard and secure their fellow Jews. And here, the Talmud tells us, they are the highest, the greatest. No one could stand in their presence. The Rebbe writes that this is so important for us to share these stories with our children. It should be part of the curriculum of our educational system to hear and listen to the stories of Jewish heroes of the past who have been ready to sacrifice their life for the sake of Yiddishkeit and for the sake of the fellow Jews. Why is that? Why is it so important? It's because when we hear these stories, it tells us who we are. It tells us about ourselves. It tells us what we're capable of. It tells us what kind of holy soul we have. You think about it. What is it about someone you look up to that makes you look up to them? What is it about your parents, your grandparents, previous generations that you remember that has made an indelible mark that is on you? It's usually when they went above and beyond. It's not the ordinary stuff. It's when they're able to sacrifice something from themselves for others or for their Judaism. That's what we remember. That's what talks to us. That's what resonates. That's what has our souls sing. So on a day like Yom HaZikaron this week, Day of Remembrance of 25,000 soldiers and victims of terror in the land of Israel since 1860, or even like tomorrow, Anzac Day. It's a time to think about these stories and think about what they teach us, and actually to get to know more of it. Every story we can learn from, for ourselves and for our children as well, because that's going to make them strong Jews. I'll share one such story now of a soldier. His name was Matan Aberjo. He came on October 7th with a number of his parts of the Golani 13, I think it's called, and they were in a personnel carrier, and it came towards, I think it was Kfar Aza. And they don't know what's going to happen over there. And they're coming in to try to save whatever they can in that community. And as they're coming in, a grenade is thrown on their vehicle. And Matan tries to take the grenade and throw it out. But it gets lodged in the door and he can't. So in the last moment, he puts his body against the grenade, takes the entire impact himself, and saves all the rest of the soldiers. And whilst that happens, he screams out, "I've done everything for the sake of the Jewish people." Wow. Where do we get such heroes? So there was his teacher in his preparatory school related that he tells the story of Ro'i Klein, who was a soldier, an officer in 2006 in Lebanon. And famously, a grenade was thrown at his unit, and he threw his body over it and screamed Shema Yisrael and saved the entire unit. And he tells the story to every group. And he says that when I told the story, I saw Matan's eyes fully aware and taking in every word I said. So the story of Ro'i Klein inspired Matan to sacrifice himself to save the entire group of Jewish people. These are our holy ones, unique and special. And this tells us so much about the potential that we have. These stories must be shared, must be given over to the next generation, because that's going to establish who they will be and what they're going to live for, a higher purpose. When you hear stories like this, can you just involve yourself with petty stuff? Come on. Good Shabbos.